Hi, boys and girls. Welcome to your lesson today. Today, we are learning to investigate the relationship between units of time in countries around the world. And you are going to complete a little task called Time After Time today after this. So, why 12 and 24? In ancient Egypt, all right, the number 12 had special significance in more than one area of daily life. As a result, 12 was adopted as the base number for measuring time. It was decided that there would be 12 hours of daytime and 12 hours of nighttime. This enabled the ancient Egyptians to use the sun during the day, all right, so they used a sun. And a sundial. So a lot of you have maybe made one of these before or seen them. And they also used water clocks at night. So these were measurement tools that they used to help tell the time. So that's a little bit of history of why there's 12 hours on the clock. So especially if you're looking at an analog clock, we know that we have the numbers 1 to 12 in that clock, okay? And we have 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of night time. Now, over time, the measurement of time evolved, okay? So we know that we have AM and PM, okay? And this kind of links up to what we just spoke about that 12 and 24 hours, okay? So 12 hours daylight, 12 hours of nighttime. It was decided that the beginning of the day was to happen at midnight. So when the clock strikes midnight, so that 12 o'clock, that will be the beginning of the day, and the middle of the day to be noon. So we know that when we're at school and the clock strikes at 12 o'clock in the middle of the day, that is now noon. Later, the day was divided into two 12-hour periods. Noon marked the joining point of these periods. In Latin, these times are known as antemeridium and postmeridium, all right? Or AM and PM for short. There is 24 hours in one day, okay? So 24 hours in one day. Our day starts at midnight, 12 hours gets us to noon, which is midday, 12 o'clock. And then we have another 12 hours to get to midnight again, and then it starts all over. Today, you're going to start looking at calculating time. I've got one here for you that we're going to look at together. It says, if school starts at 9 a.m. and finishes at 3 p.m., how many hours a day do you spend at school? So it's really important that we have a look at this question and look what it's asking us. It starts at 9 a.m., finishes at 3 p.m., and it's asking us how many hours a day do you spend at school. It's not asking us minutes or seconds, it's asking us how many hours. Now you can see that I've drawn on our clock, I've drawn 9 o'clock to start, okay? And I've circled the 9 because we're going to start at the 9, and we know if we read the clock clockwise, all right? So we're going to count in hours till we get to the 3, which I've circled as well. So if we start at 9, we jump up to 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours it takes to get to 3 o'clock. And I've jumped, like we do in our number lines, I've jumped on the hour each time because each number on that analog clock represents an hour. So I've started at 9, I've jumped to 10, 1, to 11, 2, 12, 3, 1, 4, 2, 5, and then 3 is 6 hours. The answer to that question is 6 hours. So really thinking about that 12 hours, it's very important to have a look at that 12 hours. Now, time zones is a really interesting thing. A lot of you, if you have traveled around the world, you would know that not every country or city even is always at the same time. That's because the sun travels around the world, okay? So each country will be in daylight at different parts of different times. We can't all be on the same time. You might even notice this, that in Australia, Sydney, where we use Sydney time in Wollongong, they might have, or we do have, a completely different time to Perth, okay? But that's because each country falls into different timelines and time zones. Now, I want you to have a look at the map on my screen. It says time zones of the world map. It has a world map spread across there. And each tone, they've broken it up into colors, okay, to show you the time zones. And they run down vertically, okay, running down our map, okay, and that lines up with a certain number. Now, in the middle of our screen, you can see that there's a number 0, and that runs down through Africa, it runs down through England, okay? That's 0, okay? I want you to really hone into that. See if you can find where Australia is, okay? And especially you can see that with Australia, in New South Wales, Tasmania, and Queensland, we're blue. You have a look in the middle of Australia, we're Northern Territory, and South Australia, they are yellow. And then right in the WA, in Western Australia, you can see that's purple. That means that we have at least 3 different time zones, at least 3 different time zones, okay? Some of these can also change in that country as well. So times around the world, all right? If you have a look at my map again, I have drawn a circle around that 0 timeline again, okay? Because that is the basis of how the rest of the world's time works out. So time zones can be identified by the number of hours difference that they are from the Greenwich Mean Time, all right? So Greenwich is in London, in England, and there is a sundial there, and they use the sun, all right, to read and the time, and that sets up the rest of the world's time. So it is calculated by using the sun. When the sun is at its highest point exactly above the prime meridian, this means it is 12 o'clock noon, which is the middle of the day at Greenwich. Now, this means our numbers help us read the other countries' or cities' time. So if I'm going to jump to the next slide, I want you to have a look at the table that I have here. Countries across the world use different time zones. Some countries have more than one time zone. So I want you to have a look at the table. We can see that England, our time zone is at 0. Okay. If we look down to New Zealand, we're 12 hours in front. So New Zealand is 12 hours in front. That means that if it was noon, so 12 o'clock noon in England, in New Zealand at the same time, they're 12 hours ahead, what time would it be in New Zealand? Well, we've got to add on 12. Let's do that now. So it's noon. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It would be midnight because it's noon. We've added on 12. It'd be midnight of the same day, okay? About to go into the next day in New Zealand. Another one, if you look at, if it is 12 o'clock noon in England and we're looking to see what the time is in Madagascar, we start at noon and we've got to count forward 3 hours. 1, 2, 3. It'd be 3 p.m. Okay, 3 p.m. in Madagascar. I want you to now have a look at that table. You are going to use the time zone table on this screen, and it's also in your learning activities. It's already given to you. You're going to answer the questions about countries and time zones around the world. So there is a bunch of questions for you to answer, and you're using your mathematical brain, okay? A lot of critical thinking to problem solve it. Work out the times in different countries, which is a really cool skill to have, especially if you do travel a lot and you need to communicate and connect with people around the world. It's really great to know those time zones and understand that we can't all be, just because in Australia or in Sydney it is 9 a.m. does not mean that it's 9 a.m. in other countries, and having a look at that time zone map. Good luck, and I'll see you soon.